So, on the screen, I have given you 4 data sets, okay? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And for homework, I asked you to decide on a single value, first of all, that best represents each of those data sets. So tell you what, let's create a little table. So let's suppose the first data set is data set A, the 7, 5, 6, 7, 9, etc., etc. Data set B will be the next one down. Data set C will be the third one down, and data set D will be the bottom one, okay? So first of all, I asked you to decide on a single value that you think best represents each of these data sets. So before you do any calculation, what number did you decide that best represented the first data set? 7? Yeah? Was that a consensus? Okay. So we decided on 7 as the number which best represented that first data set. Okay. Then I asked you to calculate the mean, the median, and the mode for each of these data sets. So for the first one, what did you get for the mean? 7. Cool. What did you get for the median? 7. Did you get 7? Yeah, remember 7 it's for the median. You need to order them and then find the n plus 1 over 2th value. Yeah? So you got 7? Yeah. Fantastic. What did you get for the mode?
7.
Was it 7?
7.
Okay. So therefore, now you know this bit of information, what would you decide is the most appropriate value that best represents this data set? 7? I would say so as well. Okay? So that's data set A. Fairly straightforward, no surprises there. Okay? So in this case, what would the most appropriate measure of central tendency be? What measure would you use? Mean, median, or mode?
Well, don't you have to compare with the other answers?
Yeah, exactly. So I asked for the most appropriate measure of central tendency. So actually, if we get rid of that, this last one said, find the most appropriate measure of central tendency. Okay? Remember, measure of central tendency, what's that again?
Average.
Yeah, the average or mean, median, or mode. Okay? So in this case, does it matter which measure of central tendency we use? No, not in this case. Not in this case, okay? So I will just say any of mean, median, or mode. So in this case, it doesn't matter, okay? Let's do the same for data set B, okay? So what number did you decide best represented the data set before we did any calculations?
4.
4? Okay. Any other advances on 4?
7.
7, 8, okay. So there's a few different answers there, a few different answers. So let's go through and do the calculations then. What do we get for the mean? 7, okay. What do we get for the median? 7. What do we get for the mode? 4. So have a look at the data, right? In this case, what would be the most appropriate measure of central tendency? Mean, median, or mode? Okay, so in other words, the mode would be the most inappropriate one, okay? Because it gives you a number that you're not necessarily expecting. Does that make sense? Right? Now have a look at data set B. So I'm basically saying either the mean or the median is fine here. Now have a look at data set B. Have a look at data set B. Why is the mode not appropriate? So have a look at the data set. Why is the mode not appropriate? Why do we get something weird for the mode? Good. Big difference between what?
Between the smallest number and biggest.
Good. So you're talking about spread there. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about spread today as well. Okay. But effectively, Nikki, you're absolutely right. You have a look at this data set. Even though 4 is the most common number, it comes up 4 times. Okay. Because there's such a big spread in your data, it gets skewed. Okay. So therefore, mode isn't particularly most useful when there's, or it might not be the most useful, when there's a big range in your data, there's a big spread in your data. Does that make sense? Yeah? So there's some number down here at 2 and 4, then there's other numbers way up at the other end at like 10 and at 11. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Does that make sense? Good, okay. So what about the next one, data set C? What number would you choose that best represents this data? 55. Any others? Any other numbers? 7. Okay. 1? All right, okay. So let's have a look. What did you get for the mean? 7. What did you get for the median? 2. What did you get for the mode? 1 and 2. So it's bimodal, is it? Okay. So in this case, have a look. What would be the most appropriate measure of central tendency? Okay, so it's bimodal. But have a look. I would argue that the mode would not be the most useful, okay? Because if you look at this data, there's like lots of 1s and 2s and 3s, and there's one number out here at 55, okay? So the mode, I would argue, probably wouldn't be the most useful, because now you're getting two numbers for the mode. If at all possible, we just want one number to be the measure of central tendency. So I would argue if you have bimodal stuff like this, it's not too bad in this case, but if there's more than one mode, I would opt for another measure of central tendency. So out of mean or median then, what would be the better measure? I would say the median, yeah, because you look at that data, okay, we said it was going to be somewhere around 1 or 2. The majority of numbers are there are like 1, 2 or 3. So I would argue that the median is much better. But have a think, why is the 7 coming back for the mean? It's the 55. The 55 screws everything up, okay? Because 55 is so far away from like the 1, 2 and 3 down this end, it gets moved towards that outlier. You'll see that in just a second, okay? So the mean, you have to be aware, gets attracted towards outliers, right? Have a look at the last one then. So can you decide on a single value that best represents that data? 7. Okay. Any other suggestions? 1.2. All right. Any others? 3. Okay. So let's go through and calculate each of these measures of central tendency. So what do we get for the mean?
7.4.
What do we get for the median?
3.3.
What do we get for the mode? 7. Okay. So have a look. Which measure of central tendency is the most accurate here? Which one's the best one? The mode? Okay. Possibly. Okay. I would argue actually, look at those numbers, okay? You need to kind of look at the spread of the numbers as well, so incorporating this idea of spread. There's a few numbers down here like 1.9, 2.7, 0.1. Then there's some bigger numbers at 7. I would actually argue, do you know what? The mode would be a pretty good average here. The mode would be a pretty good average. It's completely subjective, but I would argue the mode would be totally fine here. Okay? But the reason why I got you to do this activity is because I wanted you to start to think, well, actually, when will certain measures of central tendency break down? Okay, when will certain measures break down? So I would argue that the mode breaks down when you've got lots of different values that come up equally as much. Okay? Come up equally as much. So as soon as you start getting lots and lots of values that all come up more than all the others, then the mode starts to break down because it's no longer just a single value. Okay? The median is actually a pretty good measure of central tendency, pretty good measure. Okay? The mean, however, breaks down when you have outliers in your data set. When you have outliers.